The Scope of Valor. The desert sun blazed over the jagged horizon of Afghanistan, casting long shadows across the dusty outpost where Staff Sergeant Riley Kane stood, her boots planted firmly on the cracked earth. She was one of the Army's first female snipers, a trailblazer, a pioneer, and the weight of that distinction sat on her shoulders like a badge of honor, gleaming brighter than the medals pinned to her chest. Her rifle, a sleek M24, rested against her side, its barrel cool despite the heat, a silent partner in the mission she'd dreamed of since the day she'd outshot every man in her training cohort. Now, deployed to the combat zone, she felt the pulse of adrenaline thrumming through her veins, a rhythm as steady as her heartbeat. This was her proving ground, her chance to etch her name into the annals of military history, not just as a soldier, but as a woman who could outmatch any man, and then some. Riley had always been gung-ho, a firebrand fueled by a cocktail of patriotism and feminist fervor. She'd grown up on tales of Wild West gunslingers and Revolutionary War heroes, and she'd vowed to embody that spirit herself. In sniper school, she'd beaten the odds, outscoring cocky recruits who'd smirked at her arrival, until her targets told a different story, riddled with bullseyes, while theirs bore the shame of scattered misses. She wasn't just equal to them, she was better, and she knew it. Afghanistan was her stage now, a lawless sprawl of sand and stone that reminded her of a frontier town, and she was the virtuoso gunslinger ready to draw. Terrorists lurked out there, the baddies she'd trained to kill, and she couldn't wait to put her skills to the test, long-range shots that only a handful in the world could make. The base buzzed with the nervous energy of greenhorns, fresh-faced soldiers who clung to the safety of the barracks, their eyes wide with the uncertainty of war. Not Riley. She paced the dusty corridors, her lean frame taut with impatience, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun that mirrored her no-nonsense resolve. "Get me out there," she'd barked at her commanding officers, her voice sharp as a blade. "I'm not here to sip coffee and waste taxpayer dollars. There are bad guys to kill, and I've got a job to do." She wasn't just eager, she was insistent, driven by a need to prove herself, not just for her own sake, but for every woman who'd been told she couldn't. When an AP reporter embedded with the unit asked her about it, she leaned in close, her hazel eyes glinting with defiance. "This is about America's female snipers. We're a new breed. I'm here to show the world what we can do." Her chance came soon enough. A patrol had taken fire in a rough neighborhood, a cluster of mud brick homes and narrow alleys where insurgents thrived like weeds. No one was hurt, but the Humvee bore the scars of bullet holes, and the soldiers' anger simmered hot. They'd unleashed hell in response, M60s roaring and air support raining down fury until the baddies were either dead or scattered. But the job wasn't finished. The brass needed a cleanup crew, someone to perch above the chaos and keep the riffraff in line. "If they want to take pot shots at us, they'll learn there are consequences," his CO had said, his voice gravelly over the radio. Riley didn't need the pep talk. She'd been born for this. No mercy, no hesitation. She was in Afghanistan to kill terrorists, and she'd do it with a cold precision that would make the enemy tremble. Her perch was a crumbling rooftop overlooking the neighborhood, a vantage point that gave her a clear line of sight down the main street. She settled in, her rifle cradled against her shoulder, the scope's crosshairs a window to her destiny. The first day dragged on, uneventful and maddening. Old women shuffled by in tattered burqas, their hunched forms blending into the beige landscape, while children darted between doorways, their laughter a faint echo in the stillness. Riley's trigger finger twitched, restless, her breath fogging briefly in the dry air. "Where are the baddies?" she muttered, her voice low but edged with frustration. The radio crackled in her ear. "Be patient, Kane. That's the game." Patience was part of the training, sure, but it didn't suit her. She wasn't built to wait. She was built to act. Day 2 dawned with the same monotony. Goats bleated in the distance, their bells clanging faintly, and a pair of donkeys plodded through the dust, their hooves kicking up clouds that shimmered in the heat. Still no baddies. Riley's irritation grew, a tight knot in her chest. "They're hiding," she growled into the radio. "Let's smoke 'em out. Drop a missile. I'll take the risk." Her bravado earned a chuckle from the other end. "We'd love to, Kane, but the UN's breathing down our necks. Too many civilian sob stories in the news. This has to be clean, sniper stealth." She smirked, popping the tab on a Diet Coke and taking a long swig. The towelheads who'd shot at the Humvee were still out there, and she'd find them. She'd wait, but she wouldn't like it. Her finger hovered near the trigger, itching for action, for revenge, for 9/11, for every slight against her country and her gender. She was here to prove a point. Whatever men could do, women could do better. The third day broke with a stillness that felt heavier, more expectant. Riley stamped the street through her scope, her breathing slow and deliberate, every muscle coiled like a spring. Then she saw him, a figure darting from one side of the road to the other, his movements erratic, suspicious. He was far off, nearly at the edge of her effective range, but she could make out the knapsack slung over his shoulder, the way he bent and stood as if planting something. His face was obscured by a headscarf, but her gut screamed, "Baddie." "Got one," she whispered into the radio, her voice tight with excitement. "He's leaving IEDs, I'm sure of it." The response was cautious. "Hold, Kane. Confirm he's a threat." But she didn't want to wait. Opportunities like this didn't linger, and she wasn't about to let him slip away. "It's a man," she added, her tone firm. "The first one I've seen. He's up to no good." "Your call, Kane," the radio finally said, and she grinned, a fierce, feral thing. Her call, indeed. She adjusted her position, the rifle's stock pressing into her shoulder as she lined up the shot. The figure was a speck in her scope, but she'd trained for this. Distance was her domain. She exhaled, her breath steadying, and squeezed the trigger. The crack of the shot split the silence, and the man dropped, a lifeless heap in the dust. A pool of blood bloomed beneath his head, dark and spreading, and his knapsack tumbled free. Riley's chest swelled with pride. The neighborhood fell silent, as if holding its breath. "That's right," she murmured. "We're in charge here." Minutes passed, the stillness unbroken, until a small figure emerged. A boy, no older than 10, his thin frame dwarfed by the vastness of the street. He crept toward the body, his eyes scanning the buildings, searching for the unseen killer. There was no defiance in his gaze, but a hollow resignation that made Riley's stomach twist for a fleeting second. She shook it off. The boy knelt beside the dead man, his small hands trembling as he pulled back the headscarf. Riley's scope framed the scene, and her breath caught. The face revealed wasn't that of a hardened terrorist, but an old man, wizened, frail, his skin etched with decades of sun and hardship. He could have been 90, maybe more. Her mind raced. IEDs, she told herself. He was planting IEDs. The boy reached for the knapsack, and Riley's instincts flared again. She didn't hesitate. Another shot rang out, and the boy crumpled beside the old man, a second pool of blood mingling with the first. The knapsack hit the ground, spilling its contents across the street. Not explosives, but a scattering of dented, sun-bleached soda cans, American soda cans, glinting in the harsh light. Riley stared through the scope, her hands steady, but her heart pounding now, a discordant beat against the silence. The cans rolled lazily in the dust, a mocking chorus of her triumph turned hollow. The old man and the boy lay still, their blood soaking into the earth, and the weight of her pride shifted, pressing down on her chest like a stone. She'd proven something, all right, but as the desert wind whispered through the empty street, she wasn't sure what it was anymore.